everybody, I'm Tom Vassell.
I'm Wendy Yee.
I'm Chris Yee.
And that's Mozart.
Hi, Mozart.
I didn't know that's...
Wolfie, we call him around these parts.
Is that Mozart?
Image.
I think
Very
it's Mozart.
clear. No, it's supposed to be Mozart, yeah.
Oh, okay. Anyway, so Mozart...
I didn't know we had a photograph, that's
This
all.
game is about Mozart, called Lacrimosa, and... So what I've learned from this, because I don't know a lot about Mozart except he died young.
You know nothing about music, is the thing.
So he died young. He wasn't able to finish his final piece. So his widow in this game is getting you, a patron, to find musicians to finish the piece. I think I got the theme right.
And fund them as well.
And fund them.
Yeah.
Yes.
On the way, you are going to have these musicians make little songs, and you can either sell them or perform them or whatever. There's a lot of interesting theming. It's partially there.
It's sort of there, yeah.
It's barely there.
Okay, but I do like the thing. That was my number one attraction to this game. Also, it's a big game from Devere, and last year their game Batoku was very interesting, and so I was interested to see what the big game of this year would look like.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
Striking cover, great theme. I had a lot of high hopes going into this one.
All right, well, there's a lot going on in it. Wendy, give us a quick description.
Lacrimosa is all about Mozart and finishing his final piece of music, Requiem, that wasn't completed in his lifetime. So we're basically trying to get these composers down here to write the final pieces of his music, but we're also going around remembering him and a lot of the cool stuff that he did in his lifetime. The game takes place across 5 rounds. Each round consists of 4 turns, and on a turn, a player will play a card to the top of the board for whatever its action is, and then they'll play a card to the bottom of the board for end of round income. There are 5 main possible actions in the game. Commission an opus and document memories are the 2 basic ones that give you cards, and then Requiem lets you add to the music that Mozart started to create. Travel lets you move around the board and gain resources, supplies, and game points and those kind of things. And then finally, perform or sell a piece lets you use the opuses in the music that you got throughout the game to gain points and money. Each round has its own deck of cards, and these cards are the document memory cards as well as the opuses. And so when you perform those actions, you can gain an opus or you can gain a memory, and you pay the associated costs. Opuses, it's the upper cost up here, and the memories, it's the bottom cost down here. To play the Requiem action, you find a composer that you want to compose a particular instrument on a piece of music. You then take that composer, pay the cost at the top, and flip him over for whatever instrument you're using. You get a one-time bonus, and sometimes you even get an ongoing benefit. You then cover up whatever piece of music that is, and that can work towards endgame scoring majorities that are going on individually for each track. The travel action moves Mozart around the map. You can move anywhere as long as you pay the cost on the roads that take you to whatever place you're trying to get to. These city locations here give you some sort of immediate bonus, whereas the larger royal court tiles give you endgame scoring for different opuses or different cards that you've collected throughout the game. When you purchase an opus card, you pay the cost at the top and gain the victory point reward, but also it stays in front of you and you can then use the perform or sell action to either perform it or sell it. You pay the cost and you gain the rewards on the side. If you perform it, you tap it. It cannot be performed or sold again that round, or you can sell it and discard it for a permanent benefit. At the end of the round, resources set to 0, and then you see whatever income you have from cards down here, your income board over here, as well as any composers that give you end of round bonuses. Then you reset, taking out all of your cards, shuffling them back together, doing some stuff on the board, flipping tiles over, refilling cards and such, and then you begin the next round. At the end of the game, after you've done everything on your board for the end of the round and you've gained all of your points and you've gained all your income, you'll trade in resources and coins for final points. You'll score any of your royal court tiles, and then you'll do the area majorities for the Requiem itself. Each section of the Requiem that scores at the end of the game is based on the composer who added the most to that section. And the composers are determined by whether it's an 8th note or a 16th note on the disc. This has the most 8th notes, which means Stadler is the one who produced the most. So for each disc, players will get 4 points for Stadlers, and then they will get 2 points for Eiblers. So as you can see, blue would get 10 points, whereas brown would only get 4. Once all of the endgame scoring has happened, then you add up all the points, and the person with the most wins.
Okay, so we've already mentioned the theme, but I do want to mention...
I was like, we need to talk more about the theme.
No, but I do like the look of the game. I like the little notes on the bottom. It's just an area control area. I like the map. I like the pictures on the card. I like the cover. I think all that's cool.
Do you like the beige? Because it's very beige.
It's very beige, but this is like a time where it's okay.
Appropriate.
Also, it does make the red, black, white pop, which I think is very important.
I do like that they picked player colors that are not the super standard, because it doesn't just blend in.
It really pops, especially on that bottom part. A very odd area control thing is hey, I'm the one that hired these composers to finish these parts of the Requiem. It has a good look to it. I don't like tall boards. I know it's very, that's a peculiarity that I really suffer from, because we play a lot two-player, and when you have a tall board, it's awkward. You turn it sideways, it looks weird. But this, I mean, fine. It's also a very big production.
I was like, I think it's
hog.
just bigger than it needs to be.
Well, that my one complaint about the components, it takes a bit to set up. There's a lot going on in it, and we have it very nicely bagged with names on all the bags of what they are, and it's still like, okay, we're using 2 composers. These are the composers we're using. Get their pieces out. Then do this. And it has
Stack
the typical
the cards.
1 and
So
stack the top on 2 and 3, you know.
Yeah.
And that's fine.
Take
it
out
just
things per
takes
player
a
count.
while.
Yes.
It's a lot of work. I also feel like the board, there's so much wasted space. You have that huge map, and it doesn't need to be quite that big. You have this huge, where you're putting your area majority stuff out. That's also way bigger than it needs to be. You have these tiny little circles you're putting on a giant area. I just feel like if everything was shrunk down a little bit, then I could see the cards at the top. I had to regularly ask Chris, is that a 2 or a 3 black disc that I need to pay? I can't see those numbers.
And that's why I'm being particular. Big, long, extra large boards do mean a lot of kind of standing up and doing this. How much does this cost? Let's move the market of cards over. I found myself doing that a lot, which is good exercise because my thighs then feel the squats that I'm doing.
Yes.
Okay, sure.
Okay, so
More than you needed to know.
I want to go back to theme, because this is my issue with the theme. Is I'm a musician. I love so much what's going on, and I was very excited about this thematically. But I don't feel like the theme helps the gameplay. I don't feel like the mechanics make sense. What am I doing as I'm playing memory cards, and I'm using those memory cards to move Mozart
Blowing
around
my
a
mind
board
that Wendy is
after
bringing
he's
this
dead?
up.
No, I know.
When I have less of a
But-
problem with the theme than you. But here's the thing, I think some of it does work. Like, you get those opuses, and you're like, am I going to sell it
that works.
or play it? I was like, and thematically, I'm like, you're selling to the man, you know, I need stuff, so here. I don't know, that felt thematic.
I feel like that's one of the few thematic parts.
But you're also not a musician in this game. You
You're
are
not.
a patron
Sure.
controlling musicians. So I thought that comes
Why
through.
are we remembering him through actions?
You're going around, so the theme is you're going around and visiting people. It's actually very similar to that Disciple game that we played ages ago.
Yeah.
So you're going around and you're meeting people and they're telling you stories of his life and you're remembering.
Anyways.
But that one works more in the Acts of the Evangelist because that's how the Gospels of the Bible were written. This one's a little bit weird
I'm
because
moving
you're like,
Mozart around a map.
It does feel like they started with the theme and made the game. But
yes.
okay, but gameplay.
But actual gameplay.
This is not a deck builder.
It
But
is
it
not.
it's a deck
masquerades as one.
It's a deck refiner.
It's a deck
almost.
changer.
You have
because
9 cards.
You never change the amount of cards you have.
Yes.
But you can upgrade them, and it has a feeling of a deck builder, as in, I'll make this card better. It's almost like halfway between a deck builder and Concordia, where you have a handful of cards that you're playing to do actions.
or Rococo or something. It gives me some vibes similar to Rococo, very high class, refined kind of thing. You've got a fun card system where you're making your cards better, and it's really exciting to kind of, have that. But I also like the top and bottom assignment every turn.
I think that that's very unique.
It's also my favorite part of the game, by far. I love the taking 2 cards. One is going to give you resources, and one is the action. And then as you change those, you get to some tough choices. And You could do foolish things like take an action out of your deck that you then need to come back in, and then the actions get better. They turn into double actions and 2 different actions, and then.
But they're also worth more income. So do you want to use it for the action or the income?
Yes, and so I find that part fascinating, almost to the detriment of the rest of the game, because I get so caught up in that. I like deck building, so I'm just like, wah!
And the deck building doesn't directly get you points. You better make sure you have kind of a path to work with those upgraded cards.
Because if you upgrade cards where you only have like black discs that you're getting, you can't perform any other actions because you don't have income for the other actions. You have to balance that out.
I think. So I haven't tested this out. Like, I wonder if you can ignore part of the game. So there's area control, which is a lot of points.
Yeah.
There's moving around on the map and doing opuses, which is a lot of points. And there's deck building, which there's some small points that come from that. I wonder if you could almost ignore the area control. Obviously, you couldn't ignore it, like, let's say, in a 2-player game, because then you're just handing it over to the other person.
Yeah, 70 points one way. Yeah, no.
But if everybody else is fighting over it and you're like, I'm going to go do a bunch of music stuff.
I think that's interesting. I also find it interesting that in an area control game, you can bet against yourself. So I can be like,
that odd. Yeah, it's a unique area control.
Like, oh, this guy is probably going to win this area, so I want to get the most points. But you know what? I'm going to promote the other guy just a little bit, just in case. And even if he doesn't get it, I get some points out of it.
But it's for the engine building a lot of times. Like, there's times that we played that I was like, okay, I want a double of this particular action, even though I don't think he's going to win that space. But I think it's going to add to my engine better, so I'm going to go for it.
Yes, the first time we played this game, one of my complaints was, and this is definitely a symptom of a first play, those 2 composers on the bottom, they benefit certain actions. And you think, okay, well, if I look at, I have to do those actions because I have to consider the weight of that. If Wendy's going to get double carriage every time she does a carriage action and I don't, she can run across that map and tear things up.
Yes, I found that out very much like, oh, because I was like, hey, I got better cards than everybody else. But they were using the advantages of having those composers to almost catch up to my really good cards I was playing.
Yeah.
And you have to have the resources to be able to take those double actions. If you didn't set up everything correctly, then you have no money and no resources, so you have all these actions you can't do anything with.
And the recommended first setup, there's 2 composers on the bottom who give advantage to certain types of music. There's the religious music, there's the chamber music, they all have different symbols on the cards. And it takes a few plays to kind of be able to say, okay, reading the composer setup at the beginning, seeing what those benefits are there certain types of music that will be more beneficial? When you move around the map and you activate tiles, most of those deal with religious music. And so in some setups, that can be very powerful of a thing to focus on, and in other setups, it's not. And so you have to kind of shift how you play according to the opening setup, something you might, in your first play, do absolutely wrong and make perhaps like a bad first impression of the game. So I think that there's really some good depth. Obviously, every game is better the more you play it. This is one that I felt that a lot. The more that I played it, the more I saw how the things worked together.
How to better use those composers.
Yeah, I do think this game, you have to go into it realizing that we talk sometimes about multiplayer solitaire. This is 100% not the case, because I am worried the whole game that you're going to buy the cards I want. I'm worried that you're going to go to the locations before I go to them. And it really annoys me when someone moves really far and I wasn't expecting it and takes that one location I was sure nobody was going to go to.
Yeah.
And you're also fighting over area control at the bottom. So all that stuff means not only do I care about what I'm doing, I very much care what you're doing.
Yes.
Which is not always the case in these kind of games.
100%,
Sure. Another thing I really like is that on the traveling board in front of you, if actions don't seem very good and people aren't taking them because they're not very nice, at the end of each round they flip over and they get stronger. And so there's more incentive to go there because now I'm getting my money back and I'm getting some points. So I might take this tile that wasn't very good last round, but it's better this round.
I'm always a fan of that in games. Add a coin to something to make it better,
and this,
whatever.
And this system of flip them over if they're out is even more elegant than adding coins out. Oh, did we add coins out already? Did this one really have 2 of them yet?
Right, because they can't go higher than that.
Yeah.
But also, you're going to take them at some point.
Yeah, I think so.
Also, they literally get more elegant because they get a fancy border around them.
You just said you didn't care about that. Okay. All right. Wendy, what do you think about this?
All right, I'm going to give this a 7.5. I think that it is a solid Euro game. I think The theme is unique, even if I wish that it made more sense mechanically. But I think the mechanics are solid. I appreciate that there's a variety of different paths you can focus in. I do think you need to do a little bit of everything to build that engine and get it all working for you, but you definitely can lean into specific aspects of it, and I appreciate that.
I'm coming in at an 8. I like this one a lot. I had a very bad first impression of it. Also, we got a rule wrong, a very important rule that we talked to you about, and it was a paradigm shift. And part of that is because of the theme, the way that the rule book uses thematic language to teach mechanical aspects of the game. There's a bit of trip up with that. This is a game that's worth kind of putting in the work and getting familiar with. I think it becomes very satisfying and very fun, and to just see your deck of cards build up, your action potential get stronger, working with this music. I love the theme. I'm glad that this feels like it was lovingly done. It's not, sure there's aspects of it that don't feel terribly thematic, but I still feel like the whole time it was crafted with this theme in mind, and I think it executes it quite well. That's an 8 from me.
It's also an 8 from me. I think this is straight up a solid game. I'm always a little nervous when I play these big, heavier style games because I'm not sure how much I'll enjoy them. I went into this one wanting to like it because of the theme. I like the classical music is almost never done well in board games, like almost ever.
Sure.
And,
the few times that it's even attempted.
Sure.
It's not done that much.
Yeah.
But this did some things I really liked. I really enjoyed the 9-card hand, and you play 8 of those cards. You get to play them all too. There's not really luck of there's a little bit of luck of the draw when they come out, but you're going to get all those cards, and you decide which one goes where.
Yes.
I think it's not a super heavy decision. You're like this one or this. You just one at the top, one on the
And you
bottom.
have 2 of most every action. So you're like, am I going to do this action more than once? Probably not. I'll throw it on the bottom. Like, I feel like that's an easy choice.
Well, maybe you might get like 4 of one action if you're not watching how you build your deck. I like the traveling around. It reminds me a lot of games like Orleans, around on the board. And the area control on the bottom, I am amused that it's a musical keyboard with instruments. I find that stuff interesting. So it just comes together. It's a tough teach. You will lose your first game against experienced players, but none of that is bad, I think. Overall, I think it's a very enjoyable game, and I think this one might stand out amongst others that have come out this year, basically because of the theme. I think it will stand out, but I'm glad that the game is good enough to back that up. So anyway, that's Lacrimosa. I'm Tom Vassell.
I'm Wendy Yee.
I'm Chris Yee.
And find a magic flute.